we're now very pleased to welcome the person behind this event, Talentsoft Chief Marketing Officer. She will share with us why we are all here today. And she has gathered a few human resource leaders from various industries who have exciting stories to tell about how they are innovating and rethinking their employee experience journey within their respective industries. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ségolène Finet.
Thank you, Asha. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. We dreamt about having our user conference in another country than France for a few years now, and to have all of you here with us today, it just feels amazing. So thank you. Thank you for making the journey, for some of you from very far. Last year, as lots of you know, we were in Paris for Club Talentsoft, and we talked about why is building a very positive employee experience so critical. You know, why is it so critical to employee engagement, to innovation, to performance, to overall success? We talked about the why. Well, this year in Amsterdam, we're not going to talk about the why. We're going to talk about the how. How do you reinvent candidate, employee, learner experience? Because it's not so easy, right? You come to work one morning, you say to your team, we've got to work on employee experience. People are not so happy or successful around here. But then how do you get started? How do you do it? How do you realign all HR services so that the employee is the internal customer at the center of it all? How do you take into account the very diverse aspirations of your workforce? How do you reinvent learning to put the learner in the driving seat of their own learning? How do you reinvent candidate experience to ensure that what happened outside of the organization flows seamlessly through what happened inside the organization? And of course, how do you leverage technology the right way? Like Talentsoft, right? How do you leverage technology to make employee experience, learner experience, candidate experience smoother, more fluid, and above all, more personalized? Well, to answer those questions today, we're going to have a conversation on stage with three HR leaders like you, who today, in the trenches, in the complex world of European and global business, are reinventing employee experience. They're going to talk to us about their challenges, what they've done, what they've learned, what they're going to do next. So it's my great pleasure to welcome on stage those three leaders, starting with, and I should have a little slide here that has their names, but that's no big deal. Starting with Paolo BERNASCONI from OPCW, the Organization Against the Proliferation of Chemical. Welcome. Welcome. Please have a seat over here.
Thank you.
Elke, JORENS, who is the Director for Talent Acquisition at Microsoft. And Henrik, ROSANDER, please join us. Who is the Director of Strategic HR at Toyota Material Handling. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, Henrik, I'll start with you.
Yep.
So, Toyota Material Handling has over 10,000 employees in over 20 countries. You used to focus really on renting forklifts, but you're in the middle of a reinvention. So tell us a little bit what's going on and how the business is getting transformed.
Yeah, I think a big transition for Toyota Material Handling is that we are coming from a fairly traditional background of being a product vendor, where we have designed, manufactured, sold forklifts, and that has been the focus. But what we see in the material handling business is a big transformation that's driven by e-commerce, is driven by quite optimization and large scalability in the material handling business. So that's driving a need for us to become much more a solution provider, not only focusing on physical products, but also focusing on growing in the value chain, so to speak, offering solutions that may include automation, may include telematics, connected to Internet of Things and so on, but also design, lean concepts and so on, that is focused on optimizing the customer's operations as opposed to just delivering products. That is driving a big transformation.
Very interesting. I think several of you in the audience completely relate to this kind of transformation. And Elke, you're with Microsoft, so we all know Microsoft. We all use Microsoft tools, but Microsoft is changing. You know, since Satya Nadella joined the company, he's been the CEO for 3 years now. And tell us a little bit about the major changes happening at Microsoft today.
Let me first thank you for my speaker experience. Putting a picture of 12 years ago, that's an awesome experience.
You look wonderful now, too.
No, but thank you for that. Yesterday in my hotel, there was a little note with saying, welcome, Mr. JORENS. So I prefer this one. So yeah, Microsoft indeed, a huge transformation for, I would say, 5 years, but really intense the last 3 years. And it's no hidden secret, right, that 5 years ago, I think Microsoft was really lagging behind. And the digitalization is a huge opportunity, right? The market is huge, we all now know that. But for Microsoft, it really meant that we needed totally different talent. Really more solution, focused more industry experts, cloud experts, which, to be honest, we didn't have, right? We had, if I can call it, like we shifted boxes, right? We sold licenses, whereas the model today with the consumption of cloud is a totally different selling proposition. And actually what it meant for talent acquisition is that we had to find totally different talent.
Yeah. Now we're going to talk about that,
exactly.
but that's, I think
that's really, so
yeah.
Talent acquisition is at the heart of the transformation in order to enable that.
Very interesting. And Paolo, talent acquisition for you is key as well. Now, OPCW is a very different type of organization than, you know, a lot of, you know, companies that you might be working with. I think I can say for sure that you're the only one working for an organization that has gotten a Nobel Peace Prize. So we bow to you. Yeah.
And we still need to live up to it.
For eliminating 96% of a stockpile of chemical weapons worldwide in 20 years, so bravo. And you have your own challenges. And tell us a little bit about the purpose of the organization and how you try as an HRD to make that a reality.
Yes, thank you. So yes, indeed, we got the Nobel Prize, but I think we still have to live up to it. So the interesting thing is we are really having a mission which is incredibly strong, so which actually talks to employees. It's to create a world free of chemical weapons. But having a workforce which we have more than 80 nationalities in just one building here in the Netherlands, coming from different backgrounds. So we have like high-ranking diplomats among our workforce, we have officials from different armies, we have the UN workers, United Nations workers, and all this in the technical secretariat to work for a world free of chemical weapons, where we have different layers of diversity, we have different cultures, we have different organizational culture, we have people coming from different like studies, but then all this in a context of chemical weapons, so which means secrecy is so important, confidentiality. So on the first day we tell our staff, knowledge sharing, yes, but on a need-to-know basis. So how do we actually do knowledge management in a context where you have so much secrecy and where like you are told only on a need-to-know basis.
Yeah, interesting. It's like you have the same issues that a lot of organizations have about building trust, but it's even more acute. So we're going to drill into this. Elke, I have a confession to make. When I saw your job, I thought, oh my God, this woman has an easy job. She's director of talent acquisition for Microsoft. So she puts a job post, she must have thousands of applicants, and she sorts the best one, and off she goes. But then I saw that you have like a sourcing team devoted to really identifying people. So it's not so easy, right? You don't have such an easy job, right? Tell us.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Even I would say the managers in Microsoft who hire the people, right?
Yeah.
They have the idea.
Yeah, it's easy.
Indeed, so why don't we have the candidates, right? So
yeah.
we do have, and so we recently went to the cloud with our talent acquisition. Since only in 3 months we have 1.5 million applicants. So
right.
Purely on the numbers, you would say they are there, right? So, but indeed, and I think this is very known to all of you, it are never the right candidates, because the right candidates, they do have a job. And so we have they do, yeah. And,
they don't apply.
Yeah, and
yeah.
So we have indeed a central sourcing team. So in my EMEA region, I have a central sourcing team that hunts people day in, day out, right? So that's the way to acquire talent, the right talent, actually.
Okay. All right, good. So we'll drill a little bit more on that. And Henrik, we were talking earlier, because you already did a presentation for our customer advisory board, about something that I find really interesting is how Toyota, with its very strong value around quality and people centricity, is really applying continuous improvement principles to the HR, to the talent management. Tell us a little bit about what's happening in that context. What have you tried to accomplish there?
One of the key initiatives coming out of my function of strategic HR we call agile performance, and it is just that. How do we get a continuous flow in the focus of driving progress, making change happen? And to me, that is really closely tied to what we call now as the employee experience. I did a couple of years ago, I spent some time trying to understand what is an employee experience and what drives a good employee experience. So I had the habit of moving around in the organization, asking people to describe a good day at work. What is a good day at work? And most people did not tell stories about what happened in the coffee room or anything like that. Most people said, I was able to accomplish this, I contributed in this way, I was a part of a major achievement or a major change. And I think we're trying to leverage that in turning our company into something that is able to compete in the new solution business, which drives much more need for speed, adaptability, across the business. I see a close tie there.
So if employee experience, if what makes an employee experience positive is really first and foremost, work accomplishment and not, ping-pong tables or fun meals. How do you work on that? Like practically, how do you make employees succeed better, have a bigger sense of accomplishment at Toyota? What do you do?
First of all, we want to engage people in the changes we are making. I think we have been a fairly traditional companies, and I think a lot of traditional companies have struggled in engaging people all the way through the organization, in understanding strategy, understanding where we are heading, but most of all, turning that into what we call a roadmap for each function, each team, meaning that one part of the focus is how do we deliver value on an ongoing basis, but the other focus that each leader and employee needs to have is what do we need to be 1 or 2 years down the road, driven by the changes in the material handling business, our modification of our business models, responding to a changing world, to put it briefly, and really be engaged in that, not only being told what to do, but also taking part in identifying that journey, selecting and prioritizing, and also executing it.
I think we'll drill a little bit into that concept of agile performance in a minute, but on the topic of employee experience, I think it's interesting to get everybody's perspective. Paolo, for you, for your organization, what is the what are the key components of a successful employee experience, and how do you address it with such a diverse workforce?
Yes, employee experience is really like, how do I feel in the organization? So it's the vibe that you have in an organization. And it's connecting people. Our staff wants to have meaningful connections. So you would expect that working for a world free of chemical weapons, all of them are really excited. Mm-hmm. Yes, in the beginning, but then as the years go by, and we have another specificity, which is we are a non-career organization. So which means that after 7 years, you're out. So whatever happens. So how do you keep that connection alive? And also in such a diverse workforce. So at the basis of employee experience is trust. How do you create trust? So we actually went out to our staff and we asked them, what is trust for you? And where is actually trust missing? Can you give us examples? And then staff responded. And then we had a second iteration. We shared the responses with all the staff and we said, how is this resonating with you? And what solutions would you have? What would you suggest? So we had like 2-3 iterations on the trust really to find out, do we have a common, is a soldier, a high-ranking military, understanding trust the same way than somebody like me who comes from the humanitarian aid?
Yes.
So
and,
that's the challenge.
Very interesting. And can you give us like a practical example of something, a solution you use or you developed to build trust, like among the recommendations that came out? Is there anything, any tips that the audience could use? I think building trust is key for any organization.
I mean, for us also, we have like high-ranking soldiers and we have these diplomats. And one thing was really to tell them it's actually okay as a staff to be vulnerable. And this is one thing. I had a director who came to see me and said, I have some problems with the English language and I would need English courses, but nobody should know. So this is where we are. So where face saving and ranking and hierarchy is so important. So what we actually introduced is, we started with mindfulness and meditation. We have now also started a resilience program where we really look at, we had a full afternoon where we just taught our staff how to breathe, how to use, so it's really to allow them to be vulnerable. Interesting.
And because they have to trust each other in a very tough situation. When they go to Syria to inspect, chemical weapon facilities, you have to be together. You can't be suspicious. Very interesting.
I mean, when you go to Syria, basically your life might depend from the co-workers. So you need to trust them. You need to have a level of trust which is really high because my life depends from the other. So I need to trust him that he doesn't.
It's the same for all of us, right? Every day our life depends on someone else. Elke, when we talked about experience, candidate experience, you said it was very important at Microsoft for the candidate experience to flow, to be seamlessly connected to what's happening. You were looking at it with a very holistic view. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and let me maybe do one step
Please.
Above that, I would say. I think that the employee experience at Microsoft, and I can talk about a lot of challenges because we have them like all of you, right? We are reinventing it from the candidate until the alumni, right? So from before becoming an employee to after you left the company, right? And so we have broke down every life cycle, so like candidate, employee, onboarding, performing, exit, alumni. We have broken down all of that in small steps and defined which experience at every step we want to give our people. Because I think that is really, if I may, the mission of Microsoft is, and that sounds like extremely ambitious, it's empowering every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. That means for HR excellence that we, as HR folks, we need to empower the people so that they can empower their customers. That means that every step in their life cycle needs to be seamless. Now, we are not there, right? So I'm not going to claim here we're there. Let me focus on the candidate part. The candidate part, and let me maybe start with saying what the challenges were, and we still have some. But I would say the key ones were that candidates didn't hear back from us. A very common one, I would say. That they had no idea where they are in the process. So they are somewhere in the interview process, so, but what's next, where am I, no idea. It takes too long, and then you can question what is too long, but in our mind, too long. And so we have now, the changes we've made makes it possible for candidates to understand end-to-end where they are in the process. So they are a part of our digitalization. It's not like there is a candidate and there is recruiting, no, it's one. So they know exactly where they are. They will have continuous information, some of it totally technology empowered, because I'm not going to claim that all these 1.5 million in 3 months we have answered them personally, right? That's not possible. But at least there is a connection flow. And at the end of the process, they also have the possibility immediately to give feedback. So it's not like there is an additional step that's going on. They can give immediate feedback, and it's considered like, I'm making an analogy to if you order a package from Amazon, right? It's the same principle, although, of course, I don't consider a candidate a human being as a package. Yeah. But it's a kind of same principle. Yeah. Where we are still falling short, I would say, is in the time it takes. To my personal feeling, we are still doing too much interviews, right? So 3 should be okay. I still see instances where it's 5 and 6, etc. I'm not sure if you can enable that with technology, so we have still work to do. But I would say that our going to the cloud has enabled us to have much more data, to also track what's going on. Actually.
And to understand how the experience can be improved and so on. And I think that's a good segue in a question I wanted to ask Henrik, which is about technology, because you talked about agile performance and how you really want to have employees and managers have ongoing conversation about the performance. Tell us a little bit about this. I think a lot of people in the room are rethinking the whole evaluation process. I think it'd be interesting to them to hear.
Yeah, and I can just refer back to the opening keynote speech about co-creation. That was the key to us choosing Talentsoft, because that was the only vendor that said we are more than willing to co-create something with us that we, quite frankly, didn't see in any of the other solutions out there. So, in reality, I mentioned this roadmap. We want each manager, each employee to be a part of a roadmap, meaning that if you go to a service technician, to anyone in the organization, they should be very aware, they should be very included in not only understanding what I have to deliver today and tomorrow, but also a year or 2 from now, meeting and enabling the transformation. So in order to get traction of that, we include them in setting kind of the why, what, and how, but also then in making it happen. We want a very high pace, high cadence follow-up of progress, of coaching, and so on. And that is something we call the check-ins.
And if check-ins happen on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, or what?
I can say with my boss, the Senior Vice President of HR, we try to have it weekly, but due to travel, we have it bi-weekly. Right. On the other hand, it's important to say that with the diversity of roles in Toyota Material Handling, if you're a service technician out in the field, we are not saying you should have it weekly. We say you should have it as often as it needs to ensure the progress. And I think from a technology point of view, what Talentsoft has helped us is to deliver a module that not only simplifies these check-ins and these follow-ups, but also make it a little bit more tangible, a little bit more something that you can touch. Yeah, because that is very important in the transition for us.
Yeah, because you're dealing with a major change management initiative. I mean, you're reinventing the manager-employee relationship.
Yeah, it's shaping the culture.
20 countries.
I think that is one of the keys, is how do we tell a story behind our change initiatives. And in Agile Performance, it starts with more or less e-commerce, driving a new business landscape, driving new requirements of us as a company, which means that we have to work in a different way, focusing more on adaptability and speed as opposed to predictability and control.
Interesting, yeah. So agility, and Alexandre Thomas in a minute will talk to us about living business, and I think that's very much what you're referring to. Paolo, change management is also at the heart of what you're trying to do, and you started telling us a little earlier about the knowledge transfer. What's happening there? What are you trying to accomplish?
The problem is, having limited tenure, so 7 years, and then the people are out, knowledge gets lost. Even more acute for us, not only that the knowledge gets lost, but since we are abolishing the chemical weapons in the world, nobody really invests anymore in this kind of profiles and this kind of experience. So we are losing actually the experts on chemical weapons because they're not there anymore. So how do you make sure that this knowledge is safe? So we are started as a HR initiative to set up knowledge champions. So in the different, so really to have like from the bottom up to infiltrate, because of course, if you go to the manager, they will say, oh, it's confidentiality. Of course, the member states, they don't want that, like what we do in, I don't know, in Russia, we went to do verification. So it's really important that we have and the managers on board, but we do really a work from bottom up through the knowledge champion. It's basically aligning people with people.
And how do you motivate them to do so? I mean, if they know they're going to be gone in a few years, how do you motivate them to share their knowledge, share what they've learned with other people?
That links back to the employee experience. So as I said, for us, employee experience is really connecting, people connecting like with your mission. And that's what the leverage we have. We tell them, look, we want to create a world free of chemical weapons. Your knowledge is essential. So to try to reconnect again why they actually came to this place in the first place.
Right. So what's amazing is that if you're successful, your organization will disappear.
That's exactly the challenge.
Right?
So we have to reinvent
That's kind of a
ourselves.
scary thing.
Exactly.
And the more successful you are, the more only the bad guys have the knowledge, right? Too. So that's
we have a big review conference coming up in November where we have to reinvent ourselves.
wow, right. And on the recruiting front, what's the challenge there? I mean, do you have to source profile the way Elke does? Look all over the world for those people who have special skills, and how do you do it in 80 countries?
Yes, that's exactly the same issue. I mean, we need this kind of so specialized knowledge. Like if you go out for inspectors on chemical weapons, where do you find them? So you can go out on LinkedIn and there you have the chemical weapons specialist. So we really have to work through, it's really true.
Country of citizenship, Syria. I don't know. Okay.
Exactly. So we really have to find new ways. And that's why also we now we are with Talentsoft. We have this opportunity. We are just introducing it. So we are still in the build phase. If Peter is somewhere around here, our guru who helps us in Talentsoft.
He's here.
So the possibility actually to map knowledge and to map positions, so to match the competencies with the job and the competencies with, and then we know exactly what we are missing.
Right.
Because mapping what the job needs and mapping what stuff we have then creates the gaps that we can then go targeted. And we need the same, we need to go out there. They are not running all around waiting for us.
Yeah, and then you have to convince them and get them and build that cohesion.
It's also because you tell them, okay, you come to us, but in 7 years you're gone again. So that's also the issue. We can't really offer long-term perspective.
Continuous succession planning, yeah. And Henrik, when you talked about your project, one thing that struck me as well is, in terms of change management, is the way you went about it. I think because you're originally a Swedish company with Japanese owners, it's a very consensus-driven culture. So change happened step by step. Tell a little bit about how you take a large organization like yours and you make it change. How did you do it?
Yeah, maybe I wouldn't say that we are a Swedish company. We are
we
part of Tico,
yes,
but
yes,
Tico bought a Swedish
yes,
company
yes,
called
yes.
BT. So for us, it's important to understand what it takes to make change happen. And from a corporate headquarter function like me, representing strategic HR, I don't at all believe in establishing processes and then dropping it on 10,000 people and expect results from that. So we have decided to work with few entities, but very intensely, to really make a behavior and culture shift. Because
so like a pilot,
yes,
a pilot. Yeah.
I wouldn't call it pilot. We call it pioneer countries. So we've been working in batches of five entities at a time, staying with them for a long time, doing a lot of coaching, a lot of workshops with management teams, starting there with establishing a real understanding of what does agile performance represent in terms of a culture change.
And really getting their buy-in.
Yes, and really establishing success stories. So I think from the beginning we had to find candidate countries wanting to adopt agile performance. Now countries are standing in line, and we have to say that we can only do so many because we believe in this adoption model of going in depth, really securing results. The downside, of course, is that it takes a number of years to adopt it. But again, it's about making result and shifting the trajectory of the
and
company.
Maybe it sticks better too because people have bought in a deeper way. It's not superficial change.
And it takes a full year. I mean, again, it's a culture change and changing behaviors and mindset among leaders and employees.
Probably more than 1 year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Since you've been there, well.
I try to be optimistic about it, but you're absolutely right. But it takes a lot to make change happen, and I think that's something that HR as a field, we have to kind of understand what does it take to really be a change driver. It's easy to say strategic HR this and that and so on. I believe in that fully, but understanding what does it take, and it takes a lot.
There's a lot of energy
But
and
it's
commitment.
a fun journey.
Yeah,
it's a fun
definitely.
journey.
Melanie, who helped me put this event together, is signaling to me that I only have 1 minute left, right? Yes? So maybe from each of you, I'm thinking that, let's say you're talking to a new HR director or a new head of learning who getting into a new company and really wants to focus on employee experience. Give us like one advice, one little piece of advice, one thing you've learned or one thing you would recommend.
Understand where your people are coming from, because if you understand where they're coming from, you can actually connect and then to the vision, aligning the people with the vision and the people with the people.
Okay, all right, that's good advice. Thank you.
So for me, it's twofold. It's not only you're not doing it only for building a great place to work, because there is a war for talent. It's also a business case. If you have a hard time to sell your proposal, your employee experience technology, it's a business case. And just revealing a tip here, I think at Microsoft at one point in time we paid $15 million, too much, because we didn't do internal transfers in the right way. And so hence payroll was screwed up. Right?
Amazing.
Okay.
Wow. That's good advice.
I think one key is kind of to narrow or eliminate the gap between our people and our strategic journey as a company, making sure that people feel that they're a part of a challenging journey. They're cathedral builders, if you will, instead of working on
bigger
rocks,
purpose.
that they have a context. I think that drives employee experience and job satisfaction.
Okay, good.
Very
Well,
much.
thank you. We'll end on that need for purpose, and I'm so grateful to each of you to taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.